all the microphones. Okay, do I have permission to go a little deep with you guys on a Wednesday morning? Yes. Be cool? All right, cool. We've all fallen, and we have the skinned knees and bruised hearts to prove it. But scars are easier to talk about than they are to show, with all of the remembered feelings laid bare. Rarely do we see wounds in the process of healing. Brené Brown. What if I told you your greatest strength lies not in the perfect image you present to the world, but in the scars that you've earned along the way? That the very things you've tried to hide, the struggles, the heartbreaks, the moments of doubt, are what makes you powerful beyond measure. Today, we often feel pressured to mask ourselves behind carefully curated lives, striving for an impossible standard of perfection. But the truth is, our imperfections are what make us real, and our stories, raw, unfiltered, and unapologetic, are what make us unbroken. In a world that is constantly pushing us to be flawless, it's easy to forget that there is power in vulnerability. We've been conditioned to believe that strength means never showing weakness, success means never admitting to failure, and that love means never feeling pain. It's in owning every piece of our journey, the triumphs and the tears, that we reclaim that power. Sharing your story is not simply seeking validation or sympathy. It's about owning your truth. It's about standing in who you are and all of your imperfections and refusing to let the world define your worth. When you share your story, you are not just telling others what you've been through. You are showing them what's possible. You're giving them a glimpse of your courage, your resilience, and your unbreakable spirit. Our stories are the bridges that connect us, the lifelines that remind us that we are not alone. And when we share them, we create a ripple effect of hope, empathy, and understanding. We give others permission to show up as their authentic selves, to speak their truths, and to embrace their journeys with grace. In a world that often feels disconnected and divided, our stories are the threads that weave us back together. I've received a lot of power and healing from sharing my story, and ironically enough, it falls a little bit over 4 years ago today. That's when I found myself in a situation where I thought I was safe. I went to a work trip, just like many work trips I've gone on before, similar themes, an inspirational speaker, strategic planning sessions, networking with top professionals in my industry, mixed with a little bit of fun. Well, what was supposed to be fun. You see, what I thought was going to be a normal work trip ended up leaving me with a piece of me stolen. On that trip, I was given drugs unknowingly, and I was sexually assaulted. Once the cloud of dust began to settle, and I realized what had happened, although my story was my own, I soon realized that my experience was not unique to myself. I immediately knew what I had to do, and that was speak up and own my truth. Which I did, and my experience was probably what you've seen a lot in movies or TV. Short of asking me what I wore, the blame fell on me. This caused me to feel isolated and alone, not knowing who I could trust or if there was anyone I could trust. I went to a dark place where I ended up planning my suicide. God knew what I needed in that moment, and he showed me my son, Elijah, who was 2-year-old at the time. I couldn't do it for me, but seeing him, I knew I needed to get help, and I sought professional treatment. It was at that trauma recovery center I understood the true power in telling your story. If I could sit in a room filled with women and watch them authentically and vulnerably share their stories, and I could become enamored with their truths and begin to fall in love with them, how could I not hold that same regard for myself? So as they began to share their stories, I began to fall more in love with them and began to fall more in love with me, which gave me the courage to begin to share my truth. And the more and more I shared, the more I received that love and support back. Rumi says, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." I began to feel that light and love re-enter my body and bring me back to life, all from sharing my story and hearing others share theirs authentically. I healed a little bit more. Once I left treatment, I began sharing my story in recovery meetings rooms, at women's centers, at homeless shelters, and even some drug and alcohol detoxes. Seeing how much my story helped those people that were still stuck in that pain as I was just a few steps forward allowed me to transpose my hope to them and allowed them to heal. And in that experience, I healed a little bit more. I was then invited to share at real estate events all across the country, most of the time about social media and video marketing, not having much to do with my story. However, I always found a way to weave it in because I knew how important it was to share my truth. And time again, I had people coming up to me afterwards, sharing their Me Too moments. Not always women, sometimes it was men. And in that moment, I began to realize that feeling that I thought I had, that I was so alone, was not that unique to me. Statistically speaking, 1 in 3 women will experience rape or attempted rape in their lifetime. And for me, it was also quite alarming to find out the statistic about men. It's 1 in 10 men will experience rape or attempted rape. And 33% of those people experiencing this are left with suicidal ideation, not wanting to go on anymore. And for me, I can completely understand that experience. Armed with this information and knowing what I had experienced, the power of sharing my truth, I knew what I had to do. So I kept sharing. And I shared my story again and again. Whether it was in front of 25 people or 250 people, I got up and shared my truth. And I healed a little bit more. And I'm still healing a little bit more the more and more I share it. Today, with that story, I can't explain to you the opportunities that have come from that. In just 7 short weeks of yesterday, I'll be standing on stage in front of over 2,000 people sharing my story. And I know that through sharing that story, it will create a ripple effect that I'll probably never see. But based on my experience thus far, I know it will be positive. And so as we leave out this room today, I encourage you all to own your story, to embrace every part of it and recognize the incredible strength that it gives you. Share with the people in this room, share with your friends, your family, share with the world. Because your story has the power to inspire, connect, and create change. When we share our stories, we create those ripples, just like a pebble dropped into a pond, and you never know who might need to hear it, or who might find comfort in your words, inspiration in your strength, and power in your voice. Remember, you are unbreakable, not because you haven't been hurt, but because you've chosen to rise up, own your truth, and share it with others. By doing so, you give them courage to do the same. Sharing your story just isn't about healing yourself, it's about offering healing to others. It builds connections, breaks down walls, and creates space where honesty and authenticity are celebrated. Your story is powerful. It is an act of courage and deep connection. By sharing it, you invite others to see you as you truly are, and you give them permission to do the same. It's in these moments that we realize we're not alone, and that together we are all unbreakable. Thank you, guys.